The stars over Kepler 442b shone faintly through the dust storms that swept across the barren plains. The colony's domed settlements flickered like fragile candles against the harsh wind. Inside one of the largest domes, Mara Lin, the colony's chief engineer, stared at the console in disbelief. The environmental control systems, which had been carefully balanced for years, were failing. Crops were wilting even in artificial sunlight, water purification units struggled to keep up, and strange readings from the soil hinted at changes no sensor had predicted. "This is impossible," Mara muttered. "We've followed every protocol, every maintenance schedule. How can this be happening?" Eshen Riel, a geologist who had spent a decade studying the planet, shook his head. "The readings are real. The soil chemistry is shifting, the atmosphere is fluctuating, and the storms, they're getting stronger, faster. Something is interfering with the balance we've worked so hard to maintain." The message had been sent to Earth 2 weeks ago, a plea for help. They had requested the Interstellar Relief Division, the elite human teams who had a reputation for calm, precise, and non-invasive solutions. In their eyes, these were the angels of humanity, trained to save colonies without causing further damage. And yet, no one could have expected what would actually arrive. The first sign of Earth's response came not as a sleek ship marked with the division's emblem, but as a massive, heavily armored transport descending through the sky. Its engines roared like a beast, kicking up clouds of dust that blotted out the colony's view of the horizon. Inside the council chamber, everyone watched in horror as the transport's landing struts slammed against the hard ground with an almost violent thud. "This isn't the relief division," Eshen whispered. Mara's eyes narrowed. "It doesn't matter, they're here, we have to see what they do." They were tall, muscular, and wore suits covered in a strange mix of tools, sensors, and devices that clinked and hummed with energy. Their faces were unshaven, their hair tousled, and their expressions ranged from curiosity to barely contained excitement. They didn't look like saviors, they looked like something else entirely, something chaotic. Leading them was a man who exuded both confidence and unpredictability. His name was Captain Joran Vash. His eyes sparkled with intelligence but also mischief. He held a strange device that looked like a cross between a scanner and a musical instrument, tapping it lightly as he approached the council chamber. "Greetings," he said, his voice loud and cheerful. "We received your call. I am Captain Joran, and this is the Demolitions Corps. We're here to solve problems. Big problems, small problems, weird problems, and we like puzzles. But sometimes, to fix the universe, you need humans willing to jump in, roll up their sleeves, and not follow the rulebook. That's us. We're unconventional." Portable devices dug into the soil, reading its composition and even projecting holographic images of its structure. Other members of the team climbed into the air to study the storm patterns, their suits shimmering as they collected data. Eshen watched silently as the humans moved. They're fast, extremely fast. And the way they analyze the data, it's like they're thinking 10 steps ahead. Joran approached Mara and Eshen, tapping a small device that projected a three-dimensional model of the colony and its surrounding terrain. "See these readings here?" he said, pointing at a fluctuating patch of color on the projection. "The soil here is reacting to some unknown energy. It's not harmful, but it's disrupting your systems. We can stabilize it, but we need to understand the source." "But effective." In the mess hall, Mara and Eshen listened to the chatter of other colonists, who whispered about the humans with fear and suspicion. "They're reckless," one colonist muttered. "They could destroy everything here." Maybe that's exactly why they're here. It was unsettling how comfortable they were with the unknown, how at home they seemed on this alien world. Eshen joined her silently. "They're different from us," he said. "Earth sends teams trained in protocol, in rules, but these humans aren't like that. They adapt, they improvise, they think in ways we don't even understand. I didn't think humans could surprise me anymore, but maybe the universe still has a few tricks left. Some kind of old system, perhaps left by an earlier expedition. It's unstable, interacting with the soil and atmosphere, nothing dangerous, yet, but it needs attention, and we're just the humans to give it some love." But as the Demolitions Corps presented their analysis, it became clear that these humans had a way of seeing the planet that no AI, no protocol, no rulebook could replicate. "They're solving the puzzle," Mara whispered. "Even as demons, they might be the angels we hoped for." For the first time in weeks, there was hope. The environmental crisis still loomed, But the humans from Earth had arrived, not calm, measured angels, but unpredictable, bold, inventive demons who might just be capable of saving them all. And deep in the soil beneath the colony, the first sensors of the ancient system flickered awake, responding to the humans' approach. Unknown and silent, the planet seemed to acknowledge that something different had arrived, a force that did not follow expectations, yet promised solutions that logic alone could never achieve. As night fell again over Kepler 442b, Mara stood looking at the glowing transport ship, feeling a mix of fear and anticipation. The demolition's core were not what she had expected, not what anyone had expected. They were unpredictable, chaotic, and perhaps reckless. But in a universe filled with the unknown, perhaps unpredictability was exactly what humanity needed. And so, the first day of the demolition's core on Kepler 442b ended, not with the quiet of angels, but with the stirring energy of demons, whose brilliance, ingenuity, and creativity were about to change the fate of the colony forever. The sun rose over Kepler 442b, casting a pale golden light across the jagged plains. The dust storms had quieted for now, but the colony's dome still rattled gently in the wind. Inside the main control dome, the demolition's core were already at work. Captain Joran Vash strode across the floor, scanning readings on multiple holographic displays, while his team fanned out, each member attending to a separate task. Myra Lynn watched them from behind a console, her arms crossed. She had expected help from Earth, but what she had received was something far stranger. These humans did not simply repair. They probed, experimented, questioned, and sometimes laughed as if the planet itself were a game to play. And yet their results were undeniable. "Look at this," said Eshin Riel, motioning toward a holographic projection of the colony's surrounding terrain. "The soil composition is changing, but not uniformly. Some areas show sudden nutrient spikes, while others lose them almost instantly. It's like the planet itself is alive. Something beneath the surface is, well, let's just call it thinking. Our job is to understand its thoughts, then help it cooperate with your systems. That's why your automated systems failed. They follow rules, this planet does." The first mission of the day took Joran, Mara, and Eshin to a section of the plains where the soil had become unusually acidic. Small plants that should have been thriving were shriveled and gray. Joran knelt, producing a device that resembled a cross between a scanner and a brush. He waved it gently over the soil. A soft hum filled the air, and a holographic map of underground channels appeared. "See these lines?" he said. "These channels are remnants of some old terraforming system. The previous expedition installed them long ago, but they've been inactive for decades. Now they're reacting to the planet's natural cycles in unexpected ways. If we can gently guide them, we can stabilize the soil without harming the environment. So they're not damaged, they're just misaligned. Let's see if we can coax these channels into harmony." The first signs of life returned to the patch of land that had seemed dead. Mara could hardly believe her eyes. "It's working. I didn't think anything could fix this so quickly." Machines can follow orders, but they can't improvise like this. They found pockets of gas trapped beneath the surface, harmless but enough to interfere with sensors. They even uncovered ancient devices left by earlier humans, designed to monitor and modify the planet's environment, devices that had long been forgotten and were now partially functional on their own. Every discovery was met with fascination from the colonists. They had grown used to controlled, predictable systems, but these humans approached each challenge like a puzzle. They combined science, intuition, and imagination to find solutions that were elegant in their simplicity, yet ingenious in their execution. By mid-afternoon, the team approached the edge of a large canyon that ran like a scar across the plains. The canyon walls were jagged, and the floor was littered with rocks that seemed to vibrate faintly underfoot. Joran activated a portable scanner and projected a holographic map of the underground formations. "This canyon," he explained, "is part of a much larger network. It channels water, nutrients, and energy across the planet. And it's interacting with your colony's systems in ways we didn't expect. We need to map it fully, understand how it moves, and then guide it. That's why you called us, right? Angels. Well, maybe angels in disguise, but demons would be more accurate, chaotic, yes, but effective." Tiny machines left by the previous expedition hummed softly, responding to the new human presence. Joran moved among them, adjusting settings, tapping devices, and sometimes speaking to them as if they were living creatures. "You see," he said, turning to Mara and Eshin. It's not about controlling the planet. It's about understanding it, listening, and helping it make the right choices. Humans are unique in that we can empathize with systems in ways machines cannot. That's our advantage. They had feared these humans, assumed they would act recklessly, and yet every action was deliberate, every decision intelligent, even if unconventional. By evening, the team had completed the initial survey. The canyon was no longer a threat but a carefully guided system, harmonized with the colony's needs. Mara felt a sense of wonder she hadn't experienced in years. "They're incredible," she admitted to Eshin. "I didn't believe it at first, but they see things we cannot, they think differently, and it's working. Perhaps only humans can truly save humans when the universe behaves unpredictably." Joran hummed a tune under his breath, tapping devices and adjusting sensors, while the rest of his team moved efficiently, almost like a well-rehearsed dance. Mara lingered, watching them. There was something about their energy, their confidence, their willingness to engage with the unknown that was inspiring. They were not angels, not in the way the colony had imagined. But in their chaos and their ingenuity lay the seeds of salvation. Eshin approached her quietly. "Do you think the planet likes them?" he asked. Mara smiled faintly. "I don't know, but I think the planet respects them, and maybe that's enough." They repaired ancient devices, guided underground channels, and even adjusted energy flows in the soil to harmonize with the colony's systems. They laughed, joked, and celebrated small victories with music and stories from Earth. The colonists, initially wary, began to see them not as demons, but as something extraordinary, humans who could turn chaos into order, who could solve mysteries that no one else could. By the next morning, small signs of change were visible across the colony. Crops that had been wilting now showed hints of green. Water levels stabilized. The atmosphere in the domes felt lighter, as though the planet itself was breathing easier. The colonists, once anxious and fearful, began to hope. Captain Joran called a meeting with Mara and Eshin. "The first phase is complete," he said, grinning. "We've stabilized the worst areas, mapped the hidden channels, and started communication with the ancient systems. Next, we'll work on harmonizing the rest of the planet. That's where the fun begins. Angels may follow rules, but demons, we create possibilities." And for the first time in weeks, hope returned to Kepler 442b. The days on Kepler 442b had begun to feel less like survival and more like discovery. The demolition's core moved through the colony with confidence, their energy infectious. Mara Lynn found herself walking alongside Captain Joran Vash as he studied the holographic maps of the terrain. "Look at this canyon," Joran said, pointing to a section that hadn't been explored yet. "It's connected to the systems we fixed yesterday, but it seems different. I can feel it." They respond differently to humans, to machines, even to wind and water. "This canyon, it's alive in its own way. I want to see what's inside." Tiny motes of light shimmered along the canyon floor, moving like fireflies, though none of the colonists had seen anything like them before. Joran knelt to examine one. His scanner hummed softly, projecting a faint blue glow over the air. "Interesting," he murmured. "These motes, they're responding to us. Not just movement, they react to intention. They know we mean no harm." Slowly, they discovered that the canyon was filled with strange flora, bioluminescent plants that pulsed softly, almost in rhythm with the motes. The ground beneath their feet seemed to vibrate gently, as though the planet itself were breathing. Eshin looked around, a mixture of awe and unease on his face. "I've studied this planet for years, and I've never seen anything like this. It's beautiful but alien." The walls glowed faintly with green and blue hues, and the floor was covered with a soft, moss-like substance that seemed to hum when stepped on. Tiny channels of water flowed beneath the moss, carrying nutrients throughout the chamber. The motes floated above the channels, creating a living map of the ecosystem. One of the demolition's core members, a young engineer named Lyra, knelt and extended her hand toward a cluster of motes. They moved closer, circling her fingers in intricate patterns. Lyra laughed softly. "They're curious. They want to see us, understand us. The planet has its own intelligence. If we want it to cooperate, we have to work with it, not against it." The humans moved deliberately, adjusting their steps, their gestures, their attention, and the motes responded. "This is incredible," Mara whispered. "It's alive in a way we never imagined, and it's reacting to us." But humans, curious, adaptive, creative humans can. That's our advantage. That's why Earth sent us. Eshin crouched near a small pool of water, watching ripples form as motes hovered above. I've never seen anything like this. The motes, they interact with the environment in ways that are almost intelligent. They're not just indicators, they're participants in the ecosystem. That's why our methods work. We observe, we adapt, we communicate in ways the planet can understand. Angels would follow a protocol. We improvise, that's the difference. Where moss had wilted, it began to thrive again. Where water levels had been low, pools started to form naturally. Even the vibrations in the ground softened, as though the canyon itself were calming. Myra felt a sense of awe and humility. It's incredible. We're not controlling it, just helping it, and it's responding. We don't just follow instructions. We notice, we adapt, we create solutions. The universe throws chaos at us, and we respond with ingenuity. That's what makes us special. That's why Earth sent demons, not angels. The motes swirled above them, then slowly drifted into the shadows, leaving the chamber calm and quiet. Eshin looked around, still processing what he had witnessed. I've studied alien ecosystems, human technology, even artificial intelligence, but nothing prepares you for this. Humans, they see patterns where others see chaos. They think creatively, act boldly, and adapt faster than anything else I've seen. When the universe throws the unexpected at us, humans don't panic. We improvise, we innovate. We bring solutions that no algorithm, no protocol, no angel could. We're demons only because we refuse to follow rules blindly. But in chaos, we find order. The planet has other systems, some visible, some hidden, all interconnected. If we want to fully stabilize the colony, we need to continue understanding the planet, one step at a time. And that's why we succeed where others fail. And yet they could not deny the truth. These humans were extraordinary. They had brought understanding to an alien ecosystem that no machine could navigate. They had brought solutions where none seemed possible. They had brought hope. Mara lingered near the edge of the canyon, looking at the glowing moss and the faint motes still drifting in the air. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "And we didn't create it. We just helped it, and it responded. There's another system there, one that's been dormant for decades. I have a feeling it's waiting for us, waiting for humans." And it was all possible because Earth had sent demons, not angels, humans who could see, adapt, and think beyond expectation. As night fell, the stars of Kepler 442b shone brightly, reflected in the calm pools of the canyon. The motes had settled into quiet patterns, the plants glowed softly, and the vibrations of the ground had softened to a gentle hum. The planet seemed content. And humanity had proven once again that even in the face of the unknown, their creativity, courage, and ingenuity could bring order to chaos, hope to despair, and life to the lifeless. For the first time in decades, the canyon was not a place of uncertainty or fear. It was a testament to the human spirit, a living proof that humans could thrive where no protocol, no algorithm, and no angel could succeed. The adventure was only beginning, and the planet itself seemed eager for what was to come. The colony awoke to another quiet morning on Kepler 442b, but the stillness was deceptive. Beneath the domes, preparations were underway for the next phase of work. The Demolitions Corps had spent the last few days stabilizing the canyon ecosystem, but now their attention shifted to the wider plains, the rolling hills, and the patches of land where crops had struggled for months. Captain Joran Vash moved through the central dome, his energy as high as ever. "Today," he announced to Mara, Eshin, and the gathered colonists, "we're going to do something new. We're going to teach you to think like humans do." Thinking outside the box was not something they had practiced. And yet, watching the Demolitions Corps, they had begun to see that creativity could work wonders. The first task of the day was deceptively simple. The northern plains, where shifting underground channels had disrupted irrigation, needed attention. Small pools of water appeared unpredictably, leaving some crops soaked while others dried out completely. The colonists had tried to correct it using algorithms, but the results were inconsistent. Joran gathered the group. "Machines follow instructions. Humans improvise. Let's see how humans solve this." She knelt near a patch of soil, watching the moisture readings fluctuate. Adjusting the device, she shifted the water flow, then waited. Slowly, the soil began to absorb water evenly. The crops perked up. Eshin followed, experimenting in a different section. At first, his adjustments were clumsy, the readings erratic, but Joran moved beside him, offering gentle guidance. "See what the soil wants. Don't force it, think like the planet." By midday, the northern plains were transforming. Where crops had struggled, new growth sprouted. Pools of water balanced naturally across the land. The colonists looked on in awe, realizing that the planet responded not just to technology but to human ingenuity. "See," Joran said, clapping his hands together. "Humans are special because we adapt. We think in ways that machines cannot. Rules are useful, but sometimes you need imagination. Sometimes you need to take a risk. That's what makes us human." Joran encouraged experimentation, letting the colonists devise solutions themselves while offering subtle guidance. The results were remarkable. Where once there had been chaos, there was now harmony, a living demonstration of human creativity in action. In the afternoon, Joran decided to take the group to the canyon ecosystem. The moats and glowing moss had stabilized, but there were still areas where nutrient flow could be improved. He wanted the colonists to understand the interconnectedness of the planet, that each solution affected other systems, and that humans had the capacity to think in broader patterns than any algorithm. Walking into the canyon, the colonists felt the strange energy immediately. The moats drifted lazily, watching them, and the plants seemed to respond to their presence. Joran knelt beside a small pool of water and gestured for the colonists to do the same. Remember, communication is not always verbal. Sometimes observing, adjusting, and responding is enough. Slowly, the moats swirled around their hands, clustering in patterns that seemed almost like applause. The colonists laughed softly, realizing that the canyon responded to their actions. By simply paying attention, they could guide the ecosystem to balance itself. "Humans bring intention," Joran explained. "Machines bring calculation, algorithms bring rules. But intention, creativity, and empathy, these are uniquely human. The planet senses it. That's why Earth sent demons, not angels. We are unpredictable, we are inventive, and we are capable of collaboration in ways that the universe itself responds to." They redirected water flows, adjusted nutrient channels, and experimented with subtle shifts in soil composition. Each action was met with immediate feedback from the ecosystem. Where they acted carefully and thoughtfully, the plants thrived. Where they hesitated or second-guessed, the ecosystem resisted, teaching them lessons through subtle cues. By evening, the northern plains and canyon systems were harmonized. The crops were flourishing, water flowed evenly, and the soil's nutrient balance was steady. The colonists looked around in amazement. For the first time, they saw the results of human creativity combined with careful observation. The demolition's core had not simply fixed the problems, they had taught the colonists to become problem solvers themselves. Myra turned to Joran. "I didn't think we could do this without machines telling us exactly what to do, but we did it, and the planet responded. We can notice subtle cues, improvise, and adapt. That's what the universe responds to, and that's why we succeed where others fail." Fires had been lit in open areas, and the soft glow of lamps reflected off the domes. The team shared stories of Earth, of previous missions, and of human ingenuity in the face of unexpected challenges. The colonists listened eagerly, inspired by the tales of creativity, risk-taking, and problem-solving. One of the younger colonists, a technician named Loma, asked Joran, "Do you think humans can solve any problem, even when we don't understand it at first?" "That's why the planet responds to us." The demolition's core had done more than stabilize the environment. They had inspired the colonists to believe in themselves, to trust their instincts, and to see that human creativity could overcome even the most chaotic challenges. Joran clapped his hands together. "Tomorrow, we move to the Western Plains. There are strange energy flows there, remnants of the terraforming system. They're unpredictable, but I think you're ready. You've learned to observe, adapt, and create solutions. You've begun to think like humans think. That's all you need to face the next challenge." They were chaotic, unpredictable, inventive, and brilliant. And that was exactly what the colony needed. As the fires burned low and the stars shimmered above Kepler 442b, the planet itself seemed to hum softly, a quiet acknowledgement of the human presence. The ecosystem, once chaotic and unstable, now thrived under the guidance of humans who could think, feel, and adapt in ways no machine could. The night was calm, but it was not silent. The planet pulsed with life, the crops swayed gently in the breeze, and the canyon ecosystem glowed faintly in the distance. Humanity had begun to teach the colony a lesson that machines could never teach, that creativity, collaboration, and ingenuity were powerful tools in shaping the world. Mara and Eshen sat together near the central dome, reflecting on the day. "I've learned more today than in all my years on this planet," Eshin said quietly. Mara nodded. It's more than techniques. It's a way of thinking, observing, adapting, creating solutions as you go. That's what humans do best. That's why Earth sent these demons. More challenges await, more systems to harmonize. But I have no doubt that humans, creative, inventive, bold humans, will succeed. We always do. Fear and doubt were replaced by curiosity and confidence. Rules were supplemented with creativity. Machines were aided by human intuition. And as Kepler 442b's gentle winds whispered through the plains, the planet seemed to acknowledge a simple truth. Humans, in all their chaotic brilliance, were uniquely capable of shaping the world, not through domination or destruction, but through ingenuity, collaboration, and imagination. For the first time in decades, the colony did not merely survive, it thrived. And humanity's light, unpredictable yet brilliant, shone brighter than any star above. The morning sun rose over Kepler 442b, spilling light across the domes and plains. The colony that had once struggled to survive now hummed with life and energy. Crops swayed in gentle breezes, water flowed evenly across irrigation channels, and the air inside the domes felt fresh and clean. Captain Joran Vash walked through the main dome, observing the results of the past day's work. He smiled quietly, not at the machines or the sensors, but at the humans around him. Not the demolition's core alone, but the colonists. They had begun to think differently, to act boldly, to adapt to the unexpected. The chaotic energy that Earth had sent had transformed into something remarkable. Mara Lynn approached, her eyes bright with pride. The colony, it's thriving. I can't believe the changes we've achieved in such a short time. That's why Earth sent us, because when the universe is unpredictable, humans are the solution. Maybe more. This is not about following instructions, he explained. It's about seeing what the planet needs, improvising solutions, and trusting your instincts. Machines can't do this. Humans can, and that's why we succeed. Slowly, the ground began to stabilize, absorbing water evenly and nourishing the crops. Laughter and conversation filled the air as other colonists worked alongside her, experimenting and sharing ideas. Eshin discovered a shallow pool where nutrient-rich water had pooled unevenly. He carefully adjusted the flow, watching the plants perk up almost immediately. It's incredible, he said. I've never seen the land respond so directly to our actions. Channels of water moved naturally, nourishing every field. The land seemed to hum with vitality, a quiet acknowledgement of human ingenuity. The colonists began to realize that they were not simply following instructions. They were shaping the world around them, acting with creativity, collaboration, and confidence. As the sun reached its peak, the team decided to return to the canyon ecosystem for a final review. The moats and glowing plants had stabilized completely. Nutrient flows and water channels were balanced, and the ecosystem thrived without direct intervention. The colonists walked through the canyon with a new sense of respect, observing how the land responded to their presence. Joran knelt near the water pools and gestured to Mara and Eshin. Do you see this? The ecosystem responds to humans, but only when we act thoughtfully. Machines and algorithms can't communicate like this. Only humans with creativity, empathy, and observation can guide life in harmony. That's what makes us special. It's alive and it's teaching us. We're learning how to work with it, not control it. That's a lesson I'll never forget. They experimented carefully, using what they had learned from the demolition's core. Where mistakes occurred, they adapted quickly, discovering solutions through observation and collaboration. Slowly, the entire system harmonized. The canyon's ecosystem, the western plains, and even the northern fields were all balanced, feeding back into one another in a network of cooperation between humans and the planet. As evening approached, the demolition's core gathered the colonists near the central dome for a final reflection. Fires burned in open areas, casting warm light over the crowd. The air was filled with a sense of accomplishment and unity. Joran addressed the colonists, his voice calm yet full of energy. Look at what you've accomplished. You've stabilized this colony, harmonized the land, and begun to think like humans, creative, adaptable, inventive humans. That's something no machine, no algorithm, no angel could do. You have proven that humans are extraordinary. You are extraordinary. We've learned to act boldly when needed, to experiment and to trust ourselves. Not to impose order, but to show that human ingenuity can shape the future. The demons had been the salvation they never knew they needed. As night fell, the colony glowed under the starlight. The domes reflected the soft lights from the fires and the bioluminescent plants in the canyon. The wind whispered gently across the plains, carrying with it the subtle vibrations of a planet at peace. The crops thrived, the water flowed evenly, and the soil was balanced. Myra, standing near the central dome, looked out over the colony. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "We've done more than survive, we've learned to thrive. That's what makes us remarkable. That's what keeps life moving forward." The Demolitions Corps quietly packed their equipment, preparing to leave the colony. They had completed their mission, not by enforcing control, but by inspiring humans to think, act, and create solutions for themselves. The colony was no longer dependent solely on outside help. It had learned to harness its own potential, guided by the lessons of unpredictability and creativity. Mara, Eshen, and the other colonists walked to the transport ship to see the Demolitions Corps off. Joran turned to them, smiling. "Remember this lesson. Humans thrive where others cannot. We adapt, we create, we inspire. Never forget that your creativity, courage, and ingenuity are your greatest tools. You've shown us the way, and now we'll continue it." The plains, canyon, and fields glowed softly under the starlight, a living testament to human ingenuity and collaboration. The colony watched until the ship disappeared from view. The night was quiet, peaceful, and full of possibility. For the first time in years, the people of Kepler 442b felt certain that they could face any challenge. They had learned to think creatively, adapt to the unknown, and work with the world around them. Humanity had triumphed not through force or perfection, but through ingenuity, collaboration, and courage. Mara looked out at the horizon, her heart full. "The angels we called for never came," she whispered. "But the demons, they taught us to be human. And that's the greatest gift of all. We can face anything because we can think, create, and adapt. That's humanity, that's hope." And as the colony rested under the gentle glow of the domes and the soft hum of the ecosystem, one truth became clear. Humanity, with all its unpredictability, creativity, and courage, could overcome the unknown, inspire life, and turn chaos into order. Angels were not needed. Demons, in their brilliance, had done the job. And the legacy of their ingenuity would endure, not just for the colony, but for the countless worlds humanity would touch in the years to come.